In the next few minutes, I would like us to speak largely about retirement. This is a topic that gets a bit personal because quite often we don't want to speak about it until when the time has come and we are no longer actively employed. But before I dig deeper into that, let me spend just about 2 minutes to briefly speak about compliance. And I love to tell stories, so let me start with a story. So once upon a time, when I was still a much young man, doing my first job under NSSF, I was deployed in a place called Soroti. My duty involved working in Soroti and in Karamoja. There was an employer, okay, represented by the CEO, a very powerful man. The CEO conspired with the rest of the employees to underdeclare their salaries. So people that were earning 5 million, when it came to paying NSSF, they declared 1 million. The biggest irony is that even the CEO himself underdeclared his own pay. As fate would have it, over 20 years down the road, that employer that I will not name because they are still in business here in Eastern Uganda fell out with the CEO badly. The irony, by the way, was that the CEO was a priest that was participating in under-declaring. The day they fell out with the company, he became a whistleblower. He ran to NSSF and said, Geoffrey, this employer has been involved in fraud. For my entire time working here, they have been under-declaring my pay, including that of the rest of the workers. I would like you to help me recover my money. I looked him in the face and I said, but Father, you've been at the helm of the organization and you've been the architect of the fraud that you speak about. And he said, Geoffrey, I don't care. I want my money to be paid. Long story short, we did a comprehensive audit. We recovered in excess of 200 million Uganda shillings, and about 80 million of that money was for the CEO. Why do I tell this story? It is okay today for you that is managing a company to conspire with people that you work with to underdeclare. NSSF does not go away. Under the law, failure to pay NSSF is a criminal offense. And the difference between criminal and civil is that there is no time limitation on criminal offenses. So you might be smart today, 20 years down the road, the very employee that is helping you to play with your books will become the whistleblower. And when they become the whistleblower, you pay not just the statutory 10%, you pay even the 5% that ought to have come from the employee. You pay interest that NSSF ought to have paid to that employee. You pay a penalty that should never have come off your books. So employers in this room today, if you are part of those that are in the practice of under-declaring, our MDs here, I've seen sisters here, reverends, this could be your confession day. Please come out, confess, seek forgiveness, and be clean going forward. Amen? Okay, so that story ushers me into compliance. What does it mean to be a compliant employer? And I'll run through very, very fast. To be compliant, it means that first of all, you are registered with NSSF for the purpose of making contributions. So if you're not registered, you of course cannot be compliant. Number two, you must pay contributions by the 15th day following the month for which wages were paid. Phillips did explain that today, the contributions in respect of the month of March should be paid by the 15th of this month. So then that means you are compliant if you do that. You must pay for all your eligible employees. You do not select who to pay and who not to pay for. Some people say some are casuals, some on probation, it does not matter. The point is, are these your employees? Are you paying them a salary? So you need to pay for all your eligible employees to be compliant. You need to pay based on the total wages earned for the period, including allowances. All payments that are done in cash to your employees form part of the wages that they received in that period. So you do not say, for me, I'm only considering the basic pay. So if you gave them certain allowances in cash, those two are considered. But it's also your duty as an employer to ensure that all your employees are registered with NSSF. And then the final thing that you need to do to be compliant is to ensure that you consistently file with NSSF. Even if you don't have money to pay for much, our expectation is that you must provide a schedule, a file through the employer portal, such that even if you've not paid, we know how much you ought to have paid and we know who you ought to have paid for. That is what it means to be compliant. And what are the benefits? When you're compliant, your own staff are motivated because you care for them. You care for their future. If I had a chance to choose between working with NSSF and another employer that was not complying with NSSF, I would not go with one that is not compliant, because it means they don't care about my future past working for them. You also avoid unnecessary penalties. Why should you be penalized and incur serious costs that you ought not to incur if you had been compliant? You directly contribute to better retirement outcomes for your staff. Some people today are poor in old age because their employers cheated them. If you're that kind of employer and your business is not doing well, perhaps it's because of the tears of the former workers whose NSSF you didn't pay. Of course, the image of your brand is also extremely important. If you're an uncompliant employer, it negatively impacts the brand. Who would like to associate with a company that is not compliant? Under the laws of Uganda, if you want to do business with government, and government is the biggest provider of business in our market, and you're not complying with NSSF, you also miss business opportunities because we cannot give you a clearance certificate. So you can see that there are so many benefits of being a compliant employer. Then lastly, what are some of the common areas where we observe cases of non-compliance? Very, very fast. Age. So some of you will claim that this person is too young, they don't have issues, why should they even be contributing? The law says for as long as they're 16 years of age and they are working for you, you should contribute for them until the age of 55. Although we encourage you that even if you have people that are above 55 but are still working for you, what is good for a 40-year-old is good for a 58-year-old. You can continue contributing for them. We have cases of threshold. Some of you say, but my staff salary is too little. What can I contribute for them? There is no threshold when it comes to NSSF. Even if your salary is 10,000 shillings per month, the employer is meant to withhold 5% of that 10,000, add 10% and send that money to NSSF. 10,000 might be little for you because you're earning 1 million, but for the person who is earning 10,000, that is what they have. So consistently saved, that money can add up. So there is no threshold. So it does not matter what amount of salary you pay. Expatriates versus, non-residents and the residents. Some of you said these are expatriates. Even if you employ expatriates for a period not exceeding 3 years, you pay what we call a special contribution. Okay? And again, our team is available to give you the details. Then some of you have interns. And you say, no, but this person is an intern, we shouldn't be paying for them. Granted, interns are not meant to be paying NSSF. But how long are you employing someone as an intern? You can't claim that this person has been working for you for the last 2 years and you still classify them as an intern. But you are paying them. They will bring you trouble, so please comply. Probation period. Some of you say, we will start paying NSSF for you when your probation period is done. That is not proper. It does not matter whether I fail my probation, you ought to pay my NSSF for the period that I've been your employee, even if it's 1 or 2 months. Volunteers that are typically not earning anything, you're not meant to pay for them. But the moment you have a volunteer on your payroll and you're simply calling them a volunteer by name, but they're earning, they are working for you, they cease to be a volunteer. Maybe in your understanding they are volunteers because they have accepted a small amount of salary. But for us, we expect that even on the basis of that small pay, you are meant to send their NSSF. Consultants. Some of us say, no, but these are consultants. But when we read their contracts, they are only consultants in name. But everything else, they are an employee. They are entitled to all benefits of an employee. They cease to be a consultant. Of course, if it's purely a consultant, then you can or you may not pay for them. Finally, the most famous are the casuals. Every employer, quite a number of them, claim that these are casuals. Why should I pay for casuals? The law does not exempt you from paying for people that you call casuals. Did you know that there are people in this country that have worked for the last 20 years, and for all those 20 years they are casuals? So imagine if their NSSF wasn't being paid simply because they are casuals. So even if I'm a casual, but I'm working for you on a consistent basis, you need to pay my NSSF. The only distinction on casuals are people that work for you at certain points without being consistent. And I'll give an example. So if I run a school and I don't have the means to maintain a compound clean on my payroll, and every time the grass is overgrown, I go in the neighborhood